Okay, so last meeting, we discussed radiation, types of radiation, and the effects, and a brief introduction to radiobiology and human radiation response. Okay. We also discussed the types of effects, the deterministic and uh, stochastic. Okay, and what kinds of response, human responses to ionizing radiation under the deterministic and the stochastic, and the effects of fetal irradiation, as well as the composition of the body, the atomic composition of the body. So for this class, we will be starting with the cell theory. Okay, so we will be going back with the study of the cell. Okay, so the cell theory. So we know that radiation interacts at the atomic level that results in molecular changes, okay, which can produce a cell that is different in terms of normal growth and metabolism. So when radiation interacts with the human body, with the atoms, and of course the cell, it can provide uh, mutation, either mutation, cell death, or cell injury. Okay? So the cell theory is one of the basic principles of biology. Okay? So the cell theory states that all living organisms are composed of cells. They may be unicellular or multicellular. So all living organisms. And the basic unit of life is the cell. Then cell arises from existing cells. They are not derived from spontaneous generation, but uh, they are what do you call that? They proliferate from a pre-existing cell. Okay, so that is what the cell theory states. So this theory, di ba madali lang naman siya intindihin. All living organisms are composed of cells. The cell is the basic unit of life, and cells arises from pre-existing cell. So having an understanding of this cell theory will help us to understand the interaction of radiation with the cell. Okay? Okay. It is Robert Hooke who first named the cell as the biological building block in uh, 1665. Okay? And it is Anton van Leeuwenhoek in 1673 accurately described a living cell on the basis of his microscopic observation. Okay, so these are just some persons and milestones in the cell theory. Okay, then Matthias Schneider and Theodore Schwann, okay, showed that cells are basic functional units in all plants and animals. That is in 1838. Okay. And in 1953, okay, James Watson and Francis Crick, they described the molecular structure of the DNA as a genetic substance of the cell. Okay, so it is first described by James Watson and Francis Crick. And in the year 2000, 2001, okay, the Human Genome Project's results was publicized, okay, and published. Okay, so this project ran from several years. So it is an international collaboration that successfully determined, stored, and rendered publicly available the sequences of almost all of the genetic content of the chromosomes of the human organism, otherwise known as the human genome. So, the result of this project, okay, nagkaroon ng mapping or nailista. May nailista na 40,000 human genes. Okay? So during this Human Genome Project, pinag-aralan ng mga scientists, okay, yung mga different uh, chromosomes na kinuha sa mga participants. So they have several thousands of participants. Okay? And during the span of, I think, 5 years or 3 to 5 years, okay, nakakuha sila ng or nakapagtala sila ng 40,000 human genome or yung structure, yung genetic content ng chromosomes ng mga tao. Okay? At ito yung hanggang ngayon, ito yung ginagamit sa genetics na reference in identifying certain genetic diseases. Okay? So, if you was if you was able to study in your high school biology about the genetics, yung mga traits, recessive traits, dominant traits, etc. So there are certain diseases that are recessive in, let's say, male, but they are dominant in female offspring. So carrier lang si male, then nagmamanifest siya sa lahat ng female members ng family. So yung mga ganong types na mga genetic content ng chromosomes. Okay? So ganun yung ilan sa mga naging benefits of the Human Genome Project. Okay. So ilan din sa mga human genes na naitala ay yung, let's say, sa Down syndrome, okay, meron diyang mga sa chromosomes nila na kakaiba compared sa normal na human genome or human genes. Then molecular and tissue composition of the body. Okay? So molecular composition of the body defines the nature of radiation response. Okay? So, yung kung ano yung composition ng ating body or molecular composition, siya yung magdidictate kung paano magkakatugon ang katawan natin sa interaction with radiation. Okay. So ilan sa uh, uh, mga mahalagang molecular substances yung tinatawag natin na macromolecules. Okay. These macromolecules includes proteins, lipids or fats, carbohydrates, that includes sugars and starches, and nucleic acids. So these are basic uh, macromolecules that we can find in our body. Okay. The principal organic macromolecules are identified by Bushong as the proteins, lipids, and carbohydrates. So when we say macromolecules, okay, when from the prefix macro meaning large, very large, so they are very large molecules that sometimes consist of hundreds of thousands of atoms. Okay, so this is the molecular composition of the body. Okay, so our body, the human body, is composed of 80% of water or H2O. Okay, 15% percent of protein, 2% of lipids, okay, 1% of 1% of um, carbohydrates, nucleic acids, and trace elements. Okay, or other molecules. Okay, so when we say organic molecule, so these are life supporting and they contain carbon. Okay, so it is important for us to remember that all organic molecule contains carbon in their chemical composition. Okay, then the nucleic acid is the rarest molecule in the body. Okay, because they are concentrated in the nucleus of our cell, the DNA. Okay? And also, the nucleic acid is the most critical and radiosensitive target molecule. So, uh, in the past, it is always stressed that the target molecule of radiation or irradiation is the DNA. So water is the simplest and most abundant among the molecular constituent of the body. So its important role is to deliver energy to the target molecules, okay? Thus contributing to radiation effects or interaction with radiation. Okay, however, it is indirect effect. Okay, approximately 80% of the human substance. So its composition is two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen. Okay, so water has the following functions: provide some form and shape, assist in maintaining body temperature, and enter into some biochemical reactions. So these are just some of the functions of water. Okay, so there are other functions, but these are the functions that we must remember when we are discussing radiobiology. Okay, so okay, during exercises, our body water is lost through perspiration in order to stabilize temperature and respiration. Diba? Para bumaba yung temperature, our body perspires. And pag tayo ay nagpawis, there is water loss. So, in order for us to maintain homeostasis, so we need to replenish the water that is lost. So, homeostasis is the state of balance or equilibrium of the human body. Okay? Proteins. So, protein is one of the organic micro or macro molecule. Okay, so long chain macromolecules that consist of a linear sequence of amino acids connected by peptide bonds. Okay. So protein synthesis, so use 22 amino acids. Okay, when we break down proteins, they can be broken down into amino acids. Okay? So this is the linear sequence or arrangement ng proteins. So siya ay long linear sequence, so meaning in a linear form. Okay, so amino acids, then peptide bond, then amino acids, peptide bond again, another amino acid, peptide, and so on. The general formula, chemical formula of proteins is CHON. Okay, so they are composed of these elements. Diba? Sinabi natin earlier that all organic macromolecules have carbon in their composition. And as you can see, in the general formula of proteins, you can find carbon. Okay? So the function of proteins, okay, it provides structure and support. Okay, so basically it builds up the muscles of the human body. Okay. Also, it can be part of some enzymes, hormones, and antibodies. Okay. So trace elements and inorganic salts. Okay. So yung natitirang or yung last na 1% do sa molecular composition ng body are trace elements and inorganic salts. So they are essential for proper metabolism. When we say metabolism, it can either be catabolism or anabolism. Okay. Then homeostasis, yun nga, state of equilibrium or balance. Okay. Then metabolism. Metabolism is either the breaking down or the ano nga isa, breaking down. Then the building up of uh, particular uh, macromolecules. Okay? So catabolism, when we say catabolism, okay, it is the breaking down of macromolecules into smaller units. Okay? While anabolism is the building up of small macromolecules into larger macromolecules. Okay? Enzymes, molecules that are necessary in small quantities to allow a biochemical reaction to continue, even though they do not directly enter into the reaction. So these enzymes can be considered as catalyst. Okay? When we say catalyst, kumbaga sila yung nag-initiate ng mga biochemical reaction sa human body. Okay, so enzymes. Then hormones. Okay. So these molecules, okay, are the ones that exercise regulatory control over some body functions. They are produced and secreted by the endocrine glands. So these endocrine glands include the pituitary gland, adrenal gland, the thyroid gland, the parathyroid gland, pancreas, and gonads. So some example of these uh, hormones are the uh, insulin, okay, the uh, follicle stimulating hormone, the thyroid stimulating hormone, okay, mga ganyang uh, hormones. So, ano pa, yung testosterone and ba't siya gumagalaw ng pusa? Okay? Gumagalaw siya ng pusa. Antibodies. So, okay, when we talk about immunology, we can find the terms antibodies and antigen. So antibodies are primary defenses of the body against infection and diseases. Okay. Well, when we say antigen, it is the invasive or infectious agent. Okay. So when however, when we say antigen, hindi porke sinabi natin antigen, we are already or we are infected by a specific infectious agent. Okay. So, when antigen is detected in our body, so it means that there are already information of a particular disease or infectious agent that can be found in the body. Kumbaga naka-store na yung information na yun sa ating katawan. Example of this is when our body had been or pag tayo naturuan ng vaccine. Okay? Kapag tayo naturuan ng vaccine, okay, when we do antigen test, okay, pwede tayong magkaroon ng false positive because the tawag dito, the test may consider the uh, vaccine as the antigen or the some of the uh, information about that specific infectious agent may be detected by that specific kit, test kit, so that can identify it as presence of an antigen. Okay? So basically, yan ang pagkakaiba ng antibody sa antigen. Okay. So let us put it like this. Pag pumasok yung antigen sa katawan natin, the body, by the virtue of its immune system, will produce antibodies. Okay? So yun yung uh, normal sequence of things between antigen and antibodies. Okay? So kaya nga tayo nagpapabaksin, so para our body can produce antibodies. And uh, karaniwan sa mga vaccine na tinuturok ay yung uh, weakened na uh, microorganism or weakened uh, infectious agent. Okay. So yun yung mga karaniwan na uh, vaccine. So, live yun na infectious agent, pero they are in a weakened state. Okay, sa sobrang hina nila, hindi siya makakapag-reproduce and hindi siya makaka-apekto sa katawan. Ang magiging effect lang niya is para siyang magiging reference ng ating body to produce antibodies so that in the future, when the body encountered the same infectious agent, so the body can already produce um, numerous antibodies. Okay? Now we go to the lipids. Okay, so again, it is also anorganic macromolecules. Okay? So, ang lipids naman ay composed of three elements. Okay, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So, the formula of lipids is CHO. But we have CHON, kanina CHON. Okay? Then H2O. Then this one is uh, CHO. CHO. Okay, the structural configuration is represented by oleic acid molecules. So there are two types of these lipid molecules. So glycerol, which is one molecule, and fatty acid. Okay, that is three molecules. Okay. So lipids is also known as fats. So therefore, its functions as a thermal insulator. Okay? And it is also fuel for the body by providing stored energy. Okay? So these are two of the basic functions of lipids. Okay? So again, lipids are fats. Okay? And they serve as thermal insulator of the body and fuel by providing stored energy. And carbohydrates. So these are starches and sugars. Similar to lipids, but their structure is different. So first, uh, consider to be watered or hydrated carbons. So carbohydrates is also called saccharides. Okay? So there are two types of saccharides. Actually hindi lang pala two. Okay? Monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. Okay? So their chief function is to provide fuel for cell metabolism, to provide energy to uh, for cell metabolism. Okay? Another function is to provide shape and stability. Glucose is a type of sugar, simple sugar. So it is the ultimate molecule that fuels the body. So glucose is under carbohydrates. Okay, okay so chemical formula niya ay same ng lipids, CHO. However, uh, nagkakatalo lang dun sa kanyang uh, atomic number. Okay? sucrose. Okay, so ordinary table sugar. Chemical formula niya is carbon 12, hydrogen 22, and oxygen 11. So in contrast with glucose na carbon 6, hydrogen 12, and oxygen 6. Okay? So they are both sugars, but they have different chemical formula. Polysaccharides. So these are the plant starches and animal glycogen. So these polysaccharides are types of sugar that we can get from plant starches and animal glycogen. Okay? So yung mga cornstarch, yung mga uh, ano pa yung ibang plant starches, we have yung mga potato, may starch yan, yung uh, mga kamote, okay? Even rice have starch. So they are plant starches and therefore polysaccharides. So the chemical formula is carbon 6, hydrogen 10, and oxygen 5. That is the general formula for uh, polysaccharides. However, pwede pa siyang mag-vary kung what type of polysaccharide. Okay? So glycogen, so it is a human polysaccharide or animal polysaccharide. It is stored in the tissues of the body. Okay? So it is only used when quantities of simple sugars are inadequate. So usually, kapag ang katawan ng tao ay nagbe-burn ah, ng energy, so ang una niyang bine-burn ay the carbohydrates. After the carbohydrates, saka pa lang si lipid. And then the last one to give its energy are the proteins. So yun yung process. Kaya pag tayo ay nagpapapayat or nagplaplano ng weight loss, so we must consider uh, yung intake natin ng uh, starches, ng carbohydrates, and intake natin ng fats. So usually we avoid intake of carbohydrates and fats in order for us to burn the stored carbohydrates and stored fats in our body. And then nucleic acids. So these are very large and extremely complex macromolecules. So the two principal nucleic acids are the DNA and the RNA. So its function is the growth and development of the cell or protein synthesis. So the DNA is the one that carries the genetic information, okay? While the RNA is responsible for the development of and growth of the cell. Okay, so DNA or deoxyribonucleic acid. So it is the control center for life. It contains all the hereditary information that represents a particular cell or the whole individual. All or other term used is germ cell. It can be found in the nucleus of the cell. It serves as the command or control molecule for the cell function. So basic sugar component niya ay deoxyribose. Okay? And then base component niya ay thymine. Configuration niya or yung kanyang itsura ay double helix. Okay? So DNA is the radiation sensitive target molecule. Okay? Only adenine, thymine, and cytosine guanine base bonding is possible in the DNA. So meaning A-T and C-G ang bonding ng double helix configuration ng DNA. So nitrogenous organic bases, so ito nga yung the bonds na pwede lang maganap sa DNA. So we have two types of nitrogenous organic bases, which is the purines and the pyrimidines. Okay? So these two types or two groups provides the base bonding in the DNA. And the sequence of the DNA bonding is this. Adenines bonded with thymines and cytosine bonded to guanine. Okay? So yan lang yon. Walang pwedeng or yan yung normal. Okay? So kapag pag may nabago sa sequence, so possible na siya ay may abnormalities or of course hindi siya human. Then the RNA, so kung the DNA ay located sa nucleus, the RNA, ang kanyang principal location is in the cytoplasm. So we have two types of RNA, the messenger and the transfer RNA. So the sugar component is the ribose compared with the deoxyribose ng DNA. Then the base component is uracil. Okay, uracil remember. And DNA ang base ay thymine. Then the configuration is single helix. Okay? Compared sa double helix ng DNA. Okay, now we will be discussing the human cell. So there are two major structures in the human cell, the nucleus and the cytoplasm. So the nucleus is the center of the cell. Okay? It houses the DNA. Okay? So principal molecular components are DNA and other molecular components are some RNA, protein, and water. Okay? So, hindi ko alam kung bakit kusang gumagalaw yung pointer kahit hindi ko ginagalaw yung mouse. So, bahala na kayo sa huwag pansinin yung pointer. Okay. So, inside the nucleus, okay, the nucleolus can be found. It is a rounded structure that is attached to the nuclear membrane. It contained most of the RNA present in the nucleus. Okay. The nuclear membrane, however, is a double-walled structure that at some locations is connected with the or to the endoplasmic reticulum. So double-walled structure siya. Then cytoplasm, it is the bulk of the cell. So cytoplasm, doon na matatagpuan yung iba't ibang parts ng cell na may iba't ibang function, of course. Okay. So it contains great quantities of all molecular components except the DNA. So ibig sabihin, yung bulk ng RNA can be located in the cytoplasm. Okay. Then the endoplasmic reticulum is a channel or series of channels that allows the nucleus to communicate with the cytoplasm. Okay. So, may endoplasmic reticulum ba dito? So, wala. Mitochondria ang meron. Okay. Now, the mitochondria is a bean-shaped structure, okay, known also as the engine of the cell or the powerhouse of the cell. Okay. It is where the energy of the cell comes from. Okay. Then ribosomes, the small dot-like structures. It is the site for protein synthesis, ribosomes. Essential to normal cellular function, scattered throughout the cytoplasm or to the endoplasmic reticulum. Lysosomes naman, small pea-like sacs. Okay? So magkaiba ang lysosome sa ribosomes. Ribosomes are dot-like structures, while lysosomes are pea-like sacs. So they contain enzymes capable of digesting cellular fragments or sometimes the cell itself. So basically, ang trabaho ng lysosome ay waste management. Okay. Siya yung taga-kolekta ng waste ng cell. Okay. So they help control intracellular contaminants. Kung mayroong mga foreign bodies or foreign elements inside the cell, so it is the job of the lysosomes to clean or to get rid of this contamination. Okay? So, diniscuss lang natin ng pahapyaw yung cell. Okay? Now, we will go to the cell division. So, we know that there are two types of cell division. Okay? The mitosis and the meiosis. So, mitosis or somatic cell division. Mitosis is the series of events that parcels out the replicated DNA of a mother cell to two daughter cells. Okay. So it has four phases. First phase is the interphase. It is the resting stage. The prophase, the preliminary stage. The metaphase, or the stage of equatorial grouping. Then anaphase, the stage of separation. Then the telophase, completion of the division. Okay. So, do sa interphase, okay, so doon na nagmamature yung cell. Okay, so prophase. So in this phase, the preparation for cell division happens. Okay? So these are the changes that we can observe in the prophase. Okay, the 46 chromosomes become condensed, rod-like and visible to light. Number 2, the duplication of chromosomes, okay, become doubled and the form 46 pairs of chromatids. Okay? Each one chromatids are identical to each mate. Each gene is duplicated. Okay. So yung 46 pairs, okay, so siya ay nagiging rod-like at nakikita na sa visible light. Then, nagdodoble rin yung bilang ng chromosomes. Okay? At nagkakaroon ng formation ng chromatids. Okay? Each of these chromatids, sabi dito, ay identical, parehas na parehas doon sa kanyang kabaak or sa kanyang partner. At dahil dito, yung ating genes ay naduduplicate. So the paired chromatids separate except at the point near the centromere. Okay. So halos magkahiwalay na yung mga pairs ng chromatids. Okay? Except nga lang daw doon sa area na malapit sa centromere. The centrosomes divides into two centrosomes, which one which migrates to each pole of the cell body. Okay? So yung centrosome, okay, mag-divide siya sa dalawa. And they will move from the center to either side of the cell body. Then the spindle of fibers forms between the newly formed centrosomes. The nuclear membrane disappear. Nucleolus also disappear. So, ito yung mga identifiable process na makikita natin during the prophase stage. Okay? Now the metaphase. So metaphase, sabi kanina, is the equatorial grouping. Okay? Bakit siya tinawag na equatorial grouping? Because the chromatids line up in the equator. Okay? So, naglilinya ang mga chromatids sa equator. They are paired and become arranged at the equator of the spindle. And then one pair attached to the fibers of the spindle. Okay. Ano ba itong spindle na to? This spindle is parang wire or small rope that can be considered as a binding fiber sa process ng cell division. Then anaphase. So, yung paired chromatids, kung kanina ay halos magkasama pa siya. Okay? Pagdating dito, it is already separated from each other. Okay. One chromatid of each pair migrates along its fibers to the centromere of each pole. So yun yung mga function niya. Okay. So the 46 chromatids become chromosomes of fine filament group at the centromere or centrosomes. Then telophase. So it is the phase where the cell division is complete. Okay. The 46 chromosomes. Okay. Then it has already formed a new nucleolus. The spindle and the aster disappears. The nuclear member forms around the 46 chromosomes at each end dividing the cell. Okay, so each daughter cell is a duplication of the parent cell with 46 chromosomes. Okay, so as you can see here, prophase. Okay, the nuclear membrane started to disappear, the nucleus also, and the nucleolus. Okay, and then the pairs of chromosomes. Then in metaphase, the equatorial gathering. So the chromosomes gather in the center or the equator of the cell. Okay. Then anaphase. So here are the two poles. Nandiyan na yung centrosome nila. Then each of the chromatids are pulled. They are pulled by the spindle fibers. Okay, then telophase. So it is started to separate or complete separation. The nuclear membrane. Okay. So we also have these four phases. Okay, this is different from uh, the one discussed in the previous slide. So we have the M phase, the G1 phase, the S phase, and the G2 space. Okay, so the G1 space, or the G1 phase, so this is where pre-DNA synthesis happens. Okay, the gap in cell growth between the M phase and the S phase. Okay, so meaning in the G1 phase, okay, dito nagaganap yung paglaki ng isang cell, pag-mature ng cell. Okay? Then, the S phase, okay, kung G1 yung pre-synthesis, the next phase, the S is the DNA synthesis phase. Okay? So, the DNA is replicated into two identical daughter cells. Okay? The G2 phase naman is the post-DNA synthesis gap of the cell growth. Okay. Question. Saan dito sa apat na phase na to, G1, S, G2, and M phase, saan yung pinaka-radiosensitive phase? Alin dyan yung pinaka-radiosensitive na phase? Saang phase? G2. Sure kayo na sa G2? Yes, G2. Kasi dito ay tapos na yung synthesis ng DNA. And yung kanyang growth, yung cell growth ay patapos na. Biruin mo yung growth ng cell is from the G1 phase to S phase, then G2 phase. So meaning, the cell, kapag umabot siya sa G2 phase, the cell is already matured. And sabi nga dito, do sa image, di ba? Final preparation for division. So meaning, the cell is mature enough for it to be or to have division, cell division. Okay? Siyempre, kung ang isang cell ay immature or still growing, so it is not capable of division. Okay? Then meiosis. So this is another type of cell division. So this is the genetic cell division. Okay. So yung kung kanina yun ay somatic cell division, mitosis, meiosis ay genetic cell division. Okay? So the process whereby genetic cells undergo reduction division. So the second division, okay, not accompanied by the S phase, then result no replication. The ova 46 chromosomes and spermatozoa 46 chromosomes. So the number of chromosomes reduced to 1/2. May tingnan natin. Cell maturation in order to preserve the normal number of chromosomes. Okay? So kapag nag-mature na yung cell, okay, yung normal number of chromosomes must be present. Okay, so question. According dito sa isang statements from meiosis, the number of chromosomes are reduced to one half or to half. Bakit? Why? Bakit kalahati lang? So, di ba sinasabi dito, the ova has 46 chromosomes. The spermatozoa has 46 chromosomes. However, kapag nag-undergo ng meiosis, ito ay, yung number of chromosomes nila ay mare-reduce into one half. Bakit kaya? Bakit kaya? Ano ang reason? Wala lang, trip lang. Ganun ba? Trip lang kaya nireduce sa one half? So bakit kaya? May gusto ba sumagot? May gusto sumagot? No, tahimik na naman kayo. Tutulog siguro kayo, no? So, anong reason? Okay. So, syempre, di ba, pag nag-meet ang egg cell at ang sperm cell, di ba, they will merge. Di ba? Mape-fertilize ng sperm cell si egg cell. So, yung fertilized egg ay magkakaroon pa rin siya ng 46 chromosomes. 33 from the egg cell, 33 from the sperm cell. Tama ba? Tama po ba? Ganun ba nangyayari? Ganun ba nangyayari? Guys, people pala people. Hindi pala guys. Kasi it's very sexist. So, ano people? Tama ba na 33 coming from the egg cell and 33 coming from the sperm cell? Ganun ba yun? Parang gusto kong gumamit ng Ouija para malaman kung nandyan pa kayo. Walang sasagot? Grabe naman kayo. Okay. So, ganun na nga yun. Okay. Sorry, hindi pala 33. Sobra pala ako, 23 lang. Ayan, during division, chromosomes are reduced to 23 or haploid or meiosis. Okay? So the 23 chromosomes, okay, one will have X and Y. So along the 22 other single chromosomes, okay? So 23 chromosomes will be donated by each parent cell. So the female, okay, ang female ay X, dalawang X na chromosome. Ibig sabihin, yung ika-23rd chromosome niya ay parehas na X. Let's say the egg cell has X chromosome as its 23rd chromosome, and the sperm cell has the X chromosome as the 23rd chromosome. So, siya ay magiging female ang sex. Kapag naman X and Y, magiging male ang baby. Okay? Gets po ba? Clear po ba? So again, kapag parehas X ang ika-23rd chromosomes, okay, ng both egg cell and sperm cell, so it will produce a female offspring. Okay? Pag naman ang ika-23rd chromosome nila ay X and Y, okay, siya ay magpro-produce ng male offspring. Okay po ba? Naintindihan po? Okay, so genes, we define genes as an element considered to be the fraction of the DNA molecule of chromosomes. So they are fraction of the chromosomes. Okay, so each genes is said to produce single enzyme that is responsible for a single chemical reaction. So these genes determines the traits of hereditary factors of the offspring. Okay. So ano yung traits? So we have dominant traits and recessive traits. When we say dominant traits, ito yung nakikita or nagmamanifest doon sa offspring. Okay? Kapag recessive traits, okay, ito ay hindi nagmamanifest sa offspring, pero nonetheless, it is still written in the genetic code ng DNA. So yung recessive, pwede siyang maging dominant traits sa mga susunod na generation. Okay? So genes are contained in a single DNA. So ito nga yung double helix. Okay, so yan yung itsura ng DNA. Okay. So as you can see, okay, so pinapakita dyan yung part. Alin ba yung part ng deoxyribose sugar? So yan, yung deoxyribose sugar. And may phosphate na kasama. Bali sila yung nagpo-form ng helix or ng side rails ng helix, yung deoxyribose sugar and phosphate. Okay, and as you can see, okay, the bonds connecting both helix, okay, ay hydrogen bond, and this hydrogen bond or peptide bond ay nagko-connect ng purines and pyrimidines. Okay? So kung makikita nyo, yung sequence nila, pare-parehas. Diba? ANT, CNG, ANT, CNG, ANT, CNG, ANT, CNG. Okay? So sila lang yung pwedeng mag-partner. Hindi pwedeng mag-partner si adenine, hindi siya pwedeng pumartner kay cytosine. Pwede lang siyang kumonek kay thymine. Okay? Ganon din si cytosine, hindi siya pwedeng kumonek kay adenine kasi kay guanine lang siya pwede. Okay? Okay, so another presentation of the DNA. So ito naman yung RNA. Okay? So yung nagko-connect sa RNA naman, okay, ganun din. We have adenine, guanine, cytosine, pero yung thymine ay wala, absent. Kasi ang kapalit niya ay the uracil. Diba? Binanggit do sa previous slide that uracil yung kanyang isang base component. Okay? So katulad ng sa bonding ng DNA, so si adenine, siya ay kay uracil magbaband. And then si cytosine kay guanine. Okay? So, kanina dalawa pero we have three major varieties of RNA. The messenger, the ribosomal, and the transfer RNA. So, ribosomal RNA, so it has a specific role in carrying out the DNA instruction for building proteins. Kaya siya ay ribosomal. Okay? It carries a big role in DNA instruction for building proteins. Then messenger, it carries information for building the protein from DNA. Okay? From DNA to the ribosomes. Okay? Then the protein synthesizing site. So yung messenger, it carries the information. It delivers the message. Okay? That the ribosomes need to synthesize protein. Okay? Need to produce energy. Need to produce or need to process the protein and convert it into energy. Then transfer. Okay? It ferries the amino acids from ribosomes. Okay? And it translates the message and the binding together with the amino acids to form the protein. Okay, so transfer RNA. So yung kanyang trabaho. Ang trabaho ng again ang trabaho ng transfer RNA or tRNA ay ika-translate niya yung message from the messenger. Ano yung message? to synthesize protein. Okay. So, when we say synthesize protein, okay, so pagko-connect niya yung mga amino acids in order to produce protein. Okay. So, yun yung gagawin ng transfer RNA. Si messenger, from the term messenger, it delivers the message from the DNA that the cell needs to synthesize protein. Then yung ribosomal naman ay may specific role siya, okay, in carrying out the instruction to building proteins. Ribosomal kasi itong RNA na to ay present sa ribosome. And therefore, when the ribosome receives the message from the mRNA to synthesize protein, so si ribosomal RNA, siya ay i-implement niya yung instruction to synthesize protein. Okay? Then, after the implementation of the instruction, so transfer ng amino acids, okay? Magta-transfer ng amino acids to the ribosome C, transfer or si tRNA. Okay? So, clear po ba? So, clear? So, thank you very much for listening. Ba't may ganun? Ayun. Okay? So, that concludes